So, this is like, to talk about the idea that in February, March, you're going to be thinking about applying to the BATTI program and thinking about applying for a job. It's really like making a dinner and cooking your rice and the vegetables at the same time. You gotta put the rice on, that may take longer, and you have to watch it, but then you start preparing your vegetables and get your dinner, and then everything comes together at the end, we hope. So, the rice is going to be finding a job. So if you open up your packet here, then there is the all-important spreadsheet with all of the contact information for the jobs, for the assistant teacher jobs. Starts with San Francisco Peninsula schools, East Bay schools, and some Marin schools. There's a note at the bottom. These are all the schools that have BATTI interns now, or have had them in the past, or have expressed interest. We add new schools each year. You may find out about a job at the Peninsula, I just heard it advertised on KQED, the International School of the Peninsula. And they may be looking for an assistant teacher. That's not on this list. They may be added to our group. I would have a discussion with the head of the school. For people who are out of the area, I will email you this list. It is not on the website. So this includes contact information. I've already found that I got one of them wrong. Oh boy, I shouldn't have said that because I can't even remember which one it is, but oh, I know what it is. It's the St. Paul's, this school right here on the back. St. Paul's Episcopal School. The new, if you're interested, I'll give you the new contact person, but you can also find it by calling the school. So this is going to start. You're applying for jobs in February, March. I would recommend looking on our website. There's a list of the BATTI Coalition schools. It's kind of subtle, but you know, they're underlined in color, so just one click link to the website of the school. Look at these schools. There's quite a variety. You have very progressive schools. You have single-gender schools, especially in San Francisco. You have very traditional schools where they do the flag salute every day. And I wouldn't cut any of these schools out. I would leave yourself open. And similarly, if you hear about a job that's a 5th grade position, and you say to yourself, oh gosh, I've only been working with preschool kids. I only see myself in kindergarten or first. Those 5th graders scare me. Over and over again, I hear from somebody who's done that, taken a 5th grade job, they say, oh my God, I was so scared for the first week. 5th graders are so cool, they're so lively, you can have such great discussions, and completely turn their mind around. So the schools may have job announcements on their website, they may advertise on Craigslist or Idealist, but they probably will not. They all will have 1, 2, 3, or 4 jobs in the spring for assistant teachers. So just bombard them. Doesn't even cost 46 cents anymore. Just email, cover letter, and resume to 10 schools. How many schools did you apply to?
Oh gosh, it was like, yeah, like at least 10 or 12.
Yeah. So
good job.
Choose your schools. It may be geography. You may be a totally committed East Bay person and you want to be here, so you just would limit yourself to the East Bay schools. When you write your cover letter, have it triple checked for spelling errors. You know, people look at resumes when they're hiring resumes and cover letters for about 10 seconds. And the fastest thing is, oh, this person doesn't know the difference between their, T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E, and the other there, E-I-R. Too bad.
Can I add to that? Since you're applying to so many schools, double check that you have the right school in the cover letter.
Yes.
I know multiple people in my cohort who accidentally said, like, I would so love to work at St. Paul's School and sent it to Children's Day School. But keep your stuff organized.
Keep track of which schools you've written to and which schools have responded. I will apologize ahead of time, blanket apology for these schools, that they are not necessarily going to write back to you and say, thank you for your resume, we will be interviewing in the next 2 weeks, and we will get in touch with you. It doesn't happen. I will say that it doesn't always happen, about half the time it does. I will say that BATTI, by putting in your cover letter, I have heard about your program, your school through the BATTI program, or I'm applying to the BATTI program, or a little bit later, I'm interviewing for the BATTI program, a little bit later, I have just been accepted to the BATTI program. That will really accelerate your application. These schools know the quality of the people who come to BATTI, the graduates, they're all hired BATTI people, so do that. So you start in March, even just cold, they're not even really thinking, and they know they're going to have to hire some assistants. They don't know who's going to stay, who's leaving. Then things start to get in sharper focus in March, and you may get called for a first interview, an informational interview, maybe for an hour, just a short one. Do not wear flip-flops, ladies and guys. You're going to be looked over, you know, they're checking you out. You will want to, now that I've raised the issue of clothes, which is always dangerous, don't overdress. You're not, you know, you're not going for a Bank of America manager job, and don't underdress. It's, school dresses can be very informal, but you don't want to go in blue jeans. That will then, if you're lucky, lead to a more formal, longer interview. You might be there for the whole morning or whole afternoon. Often you'll be asked to do a read aloud with kids. You might call it a demo lesson, but probably it's much more informal. But folks will be watching you, whether you're gushy in kids' faces, or whether you're, oh, kindergartners have a lot of germs. So you want to strike a balance there. And you will probably end up at lunchtime with a bunch of teachers, or maybe a formal interview session where people will be talking about your experience. And then it might stretch to a third interview, a fourth time. You might be talking to several schools at the same time. One of the things that happens is that once we get through the process where you are accepted to the BATTI program around March 20th, March 25th, I have prepared, with my assistant's help, profiles of you for the interview situations that I can very quickly add a few lines about. Cara is the greatest thing since sliced bread. She is going to make a fantastic teacher at your school. She has a wonderful personality, and she really generally, we can see, she cares for kids. And so I send those out to the schools, and that often gets you phone calls. Very often people get those, and the next day I've had BATTI candidates call me and say, what happened? I got 3 phone calls for interviews yesterday. Well, it's because the people got, these people here in the last column got the profiles in their email inbox. So you'll apply in February. You may not hear much until March. Be persistent. Don't be waiting for that phone call asking you to the prom. You go and say, what's your timeline? When do you think you'll be interviewing? And then update. You figure out excuses to make updates. I just got accepted to the BATTI program, or I read your article in the paper about your school. Congratulations on your community service program, and I just rededicate myself to finding a position at the Children's Day School. It looks like a wonderful school. So don't bug people, don't call them every three days, but don't just wait. Time will stretch out. I get panicked emails in April. Have other people gotten all their jobs? Jobs start getting offered in late April, May, and sometimes into June. I sometimes get a phone call in July from a school. Has anybody left, or the wonderful candidates that you, anybody not have a job yet? Any questions about this process?
Have you ever had people anyone not get a job?
So let me tell you some numbers. In the last few years, we've averaged about 90 people applying. And then I do paper screening. about 75 people get invited to interviews. We have group interviews, 5 people around the table, 2 BATTI people, and we're together for an hour, and we have an interesting discussion about public education. Then about 2 weeks later, you will find out whether you get accepted. About 45 people, 40 to 45 people have gotten accepted the last couple of years. And then those people are really start pounding the pavement. And a few of them we lose. We lose people to Mills program, Stanford program, Cal State East Bay. I mean, we pause right here. That might be a financial consideration. BATTI costs $24,000 for the total program. Mills and Stanford cost upwards 50,000. St. Mary's, 32. If you include the masters, it might be higher. At Cal State, might be with the masters, because we really have to compare apples to apples, might be 15,000. So we're in a good place, but some people choose one or the other, or they say, well, I'm not ready to go into education. So we have a few people, a little attrition there, and then every year there are 1 or 2 people who do really well in the interview session, look wonderful on paper, good recommendations, write a good personal essay, and then they go to interview and something happens, they freeze up, or the opposite, they're so exuberant, they're kind of scary to people, and so they don't get hired. It does happen. It does happen. Any other questions about the hiring process? So the bottom line is to be part of the BATTI program, you have to have one of these assistant teacher jobs. That's how it works, hand in hand. Okay, Caroline, what about what I call the kind of back to what it's like to be a BATTI student, and the best thing about the program, I think, is the feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
How what you see in class, what you talk about in class, you see that in school the next day, and you question it, and you think,
So the feedback loop with classes, not with mentors and
well,
supervisors.
instruction, and then with your mentor and what you see in teaching the next day. The most like wonderful, I've gotten these emails from people saying, we did this great science experiment with owl pellets, and then I asked my teacher if we could do that, and we did it next week, and it really was great.
Yeah. That definitely happens a lot. And like I mentioned before, it's really awesome how a lot of classes, the BATTI professors, I guess, teachers, know that you're working full time, and they totally understand that. And like a lot of times the assignments are tailored so that you can do them in the classroom through those observations and lesson planning. So that's one thing that's like really ties it all together, is teaching as a requirement for your class and also for the sake of teaching, and then like having to like write a not long, but a extensive like reflection piece on that ties it really nicely together. And oftentimes in those reflections you realize it kind of reinforces the teaching, like the concepts that you've been learning in your BATTI classes, if that makes sense. So if you tried out, I always think about our English language learners class, which you learn a lot in that class, and that's one of the classes I've thought a lot about in my teaching, is just thinking about how a lot of like how to teach ELLs is just basic good teaching practice, like having visuals and using your body and changing your inflection. And so like doing the reading for English language learners class the night before, and then like going into class or your first grade class at Prospect Zero the next day, you're thinking about all of those things all day long, and it makes you a better teacher. It's amazing. The classes work, especially when they're paired with your teaching practice. I don't know if that's what you were...
That's exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.